You've led teams through some really high pressure environments, especially high scale product deliveries like live systems for IPL World Cup rollouts.
I mean, it was a make or break deal, right? Like imagine all of India watching IPL and just a 5 minute glitch will become a headline in the news. The biggest learning from that was put the experience that you want to deliver to the customers first. It's not always a tech problem. It's not always a design problem.
But sometimes it's really difficult to gauge if someone is just underperforming due to certain conditions or someone is just a mishire and they aren't in the right position. Have you come across this dilemma?
As leaders, I feel that, it's not really what we build as a software product. It's also the team that you build is what you bring to the company. That is what will make you successful or not.
Joining us today is Kaushik, a software developer at heart who's taken code from small custom projects at ThoughtWorks across 3 continents to massive resilient systems at Hotstar, handling millions of concurrent users, just like you and me who enjoy watching sports. At Navi, he built and led a 300 plus strong engineering team. And today, as a vice president of engineering at Interface.ai, he's shaping the future of agentic AI for financial institutions. Kaushik brings a rare mix of hands-on coding passion and visionary leadership. And we're excited to deep dive into his journey today on the 3rd episode of Ctrl H.
How are you guys?
Very good.
Excellent. Very excited. Very excited to talk to you today. So Kaushik, finally after a few attempts, I was able to speak to Purushottam and Deepak. And I must say, firstly, they have a lot of respect for you. They were so happy to talk about you. And actually, after the conversations, I got more excited to talk to you because I had read about you only on LinkedIn, whatever little is there. Right? But when I spoke to them, I could realize that, there's how they look up to you. And so my first few questions are basis, what I learned about you. Primarily you've led teams through some really high pressure environments, like I've realized, right? Especially high scale product deliveries like live systems for IPL, World Cup rollouts. Today, while you're talking to us, when you look back, what do you think shaped your mindset at that point? How did you make it execution first?
Yeah. I think, even I wasn't expecting it to be that way. I spent most of my career in ThoughtWorks, where it was a global MNC consulting firm. The focus was only on best practices and the craftsmanship and code and everything related to that. But once I jumped into Hotstar and I realized that the impact that people get to create in startups was immense. There was so much riding on our plate that, it was a make or break deal, right? Like imagine all of India watching IPL and if you're not able to get your streaming right, if you're not able to handle that scale, just a 5 minute glitch will become a headline in the news saying that, Hotstar as a company was not able to, really serve the traffic that they signed up for. So the biggest learning from that was, basically put the goal first, put your customers first, put the experience that you want to deliver to the customers first. And then you also need to translate that into your team, how they think and how they execute. It's not always a tech problem. It's not always a design problem, always, right? It's also about what can we do today if the match is tomorrow, right? And what is the best way to get us there? And these deadlines don't shift, right? Because of market conditions. So I think most of the, like you said, high pressure execution and high speed delivery, these things were kind of inherent to the way we work and the problem statement that we were tackling. And I think it worked out well because people could relate. And as soon as that match went successful, there was this whole sense of completeness and you actually contributed to the biggest match at that point and things went well. So people also related to it. And then we go back to our drawing boards and say, how do we not get into this situation again? Yeah. So now let's do some deep design and so that the next match is much more smoother than what we did today. Looking back, I would say a lot of learning, and I don't think unless you are there in that spot at that time, you can read a blogs and you can try and understand, but only if you are there hustling and in that position at that point, you will get the actual experience of these things.
Yeah, very interesting, Kaushik, that you mentioned how especially startups or growth stage organizations give you that space to create impact, right? But when I looked at your journey, you worked at equally large firms also, right?
Yeah.
So when you switch between these kind of scales, how do we ensure trust and speed, right? Because I'm sure you will be in high pressure environment where you have to deliver things really quickly. You have to get the next product out very fast. But how do you also achieve trust with it, right? Are you not scared that, if we move with a lot of speed, it might crash, it might not work out?
That's a very interesting question. And this reminds me of my initial days of Navi, right? So we started from zero and we were supposed to build our first few products. We went with the assumption that you just mentioned, right? That we need to build it right. Otherwise, things will not scale. It might not be the right thing to take to our customers and things like that. In fact, we spent almost 8 months just to design and build the first end-to-end loan payment system and things like that.
Okay.
But as soon as we went live, we saw that things weren't as great as we expected in terms of conversions, in terms of the traffic, in terms of the customer experience. So all of the design and whiteboarding and the best practices that we put in, it almost felt like we had to redo a lot of things again and again. So we went into this 3 months of finding the product market fit. Right? In that phase, you would rapidly iterate on your system services and you would introduce tech debt, because the goal for that day is to make sure that the metric for by the end of the day changes, and then you again show up and then you look at the metrics again and then you tune it, you change your journey. So the rapid phase that it goes through, the changes that you go take your software through, will actually might add a lot of tech debt, into your system.
Correct.
So that's when we realize that maybe the way to think about systems is, or 0 to 1 journeys are, don't aim for perfection at the beginning, right? Aim for your product market fit. Things, what works, and you know what doesn't work, right? And just keep iterating, keep experimenting, keep looking at that. And once you realize that you've gotten into that product market fit, then you invest into the best practices and kind of build the right system. One of the most interesting things that we found out in this journey is that when you're building a B2C app, you need a lot of experimentation, right? Because there's not very close connections with customers that they'll give you feedback and things like that. You just launch a product, you do marketing, people land onto your product and they start experiencing it. So the need for running a lot of A/B tests, experiments for every small thing, like what color of the button, what is the CTA of this, right? Am I giving the right information in the right screen? Should it be async or should it be synchronous calls? All of this is something that is bound to change in a B2C app. So after this exercise, the next set of products that we built, we actually made sure that we invested in the platform engineering, where you build that ecosystem where you can allow experimentations and flags very easily. And with that, any new product that you're trying to launch, you don't have to hack it in to do A/B experiments. It's inbuilt by design. So you would just let declarative way of showing screens or changing things using configs and running multiple experiments. All of this was then supported on the platform, right? How did we get to that? If you start a 0 to 1, you would never think that I need to build this complex experimentation system, right? You would only think that I want to build the first product and take it live to the customer. Right. So I'm saying that experiences make you understand where to introduce tech debt, where to solve for tech debt, where to invest in platform engineering. So it is all related to the problem statement at hand, the market that you're trying to hit, and all of those things. So
just to build on what you just said, to ask a question about it. So in Hotstar versus Navi, and versus interface, right? I'm sure there were different things you were worried about, that this will crash or this will go wrong. So can you contrast what worried you more during, let's say, Hotstar versus during Navi? which is again more finance related, again very critical, and then versus at Interface AI?
So Hotstar Dhoni was our biggest fear, right? Because I mean, really, we could see the pattern that, when he comes on the field, there's like 2 million, people just jumping on, right? Instantly, as soon as he comes to field. This is addition to what people were, right? Like, so, and how do you prepare for that initial surge of traffic, like immediate surge of traffic? People can scale. Of course, we have all learned about scaling our systems and all, but scaling in a matter of seconds, right, to that level it was something complex, and we had to design systems that could deal with that. We had to go very low level details into like how our infrastructure actually spins up, how is it starting up, how is it, how do the caches load and all of that. So it was pretty interesting, and that was our biggest fear, that we know the system works. And another big doubt that we had was a CDN network that we were running against, right? So we were using Akamai at that point, and do they have enough bandwidth to serve all the traffic, right? And sometimes, would they reroute us through Singapore, or will it be like, do we have enough, bandwidth available in the CDN? So those were some of the operational things that we were worried about, right? And how do we handle this scale? And if something fails, so I remember this from our CTO then, right? He said, no embarrassing failures. Failures will happen, but it should never be embarrassing, right? That means we had built all of these toggles in the system that, your recommendation system can go off at any point of time during a match. Your search can be slightly slower and all of that, right? But the main thing that people are expecting during IPL is the match, and that has to work seamlessly, right? And the video stream should not be interrupted. The video encoding should not be disrupted. The delivery should happen. So we made sure that that is the gold standard that we could deliver, right? So that was a fear in Hotstar, right?
So in this switch, Kaushik, from Hotstar to Navi to Interface, how many times you had to unlearn things which you learned, right? Because every new product building has been a different gig, right?
Yeah. I think a lot, actually, to be honest, right? So Hotstar, when you handle that scale, we felt that, we know everything about scaling to billions of people, right? Or that I just felt like, everything is a cakewalk after that. But then when data changed in Navi, that game was not about just handling traffic in real time. Like I just told you, right? It's about how do you take diverse set of people? How do you make sure that your models are, and we had to do a lot of machine learning and data science magic to kind of get that right, right? And all of that learning came in. So we had to really unlearn. Handling scale is not just about the similar predictable traffic. It's also about very unpredictable people that you deal with. Then in between, I also worked at an organization called Mindtickle, right? And we built some of the AI frameworks there as well, right? And I felt like, nowadays it's quite easy. You can just pick up LangChain or Crude or AI, build something strap some LLMs, and you have your multi-agent system. I joined Interface, and I was like, I'm very confident that, we can definitely build this for them. And then when you get into the details of, oh, wait a minute, you're not supposed to do this in, banking systems, when you're dealing with transactional systems. And that's when you unlearn everything, and then you start going back to your first principles thinking about, how do you do that again from scratch? Every company has their own unique challenges, and if not, then the company will not be successful if you're just doing what is solved out there, right?
Is that first principle thinking something you also look for in your team?
Absolutely. That's one of the most important things that I look for in interviews as well.
And how do you kind of measure that?
It's very simple. There's no, of course, there's no framework, but you just ask the person about their project. You ask them, how did they approach it? And most often, if people just say that somebody else took a decision and I just went with it, then they're not the right people. Then if they've taken a decision, then you go back and ask them, you could have thought about it different ways. Why didn't you, what did you evaluate? What were your options? How did you arrive at this decision? Right. So those are the conversations that really tell you whether people are thinking and applying and become real engineers, rather than just saying that somebody asked me to implement something, I'm just coding it.
So because Harsh pivoted into hiring and choosing people. Could you walk us through your technical hiring workflow at Interface right now? How have you designed the workflow? What's the like from resume? How do you look at a resume till maybe the last round?
Yeah, that's that's very interesting, and it's a very deep subject as well because
Yeah.
mostly as leaders, I feel that it's not really what we build is as a software product. It's also the team that you build is what you bring to the companies, right? And that is what will make you successful or not. And hiring is so much more important as leaders that if you build the right team, your company is successful. If you don't build the right team, then you're just going to deal with a lot of issues.
Yeah.
So interview process is something that is very opinionated and somewhat influenced from ThoughtWorks in my early days of the company as well. So let's start with resume screening. So first thing that I look for in resumes is has the person stayed enough in a project or a company to see it succeed, right?
Deeply. Yeah.
And deeply, right? And and a good part is have they been promoted in their organization, right? So that also tells you that, they're performing well, they're being appreciated by the company that they're working with, they're being promoted and they stay and they see the value, right? That is one of the biggest things that I look for in resume screenings, right? The other thing is it have they spent 9 years in the same domain in the same tech stack, or have they at least become a polyglot developers, or have they flexed their understanding a little bit, and have they seen different types of challenges and problem statements? Because that perspective is something that will make people really good engineers. So to be honest, just two things primarily that I look for in resume screenings is the impact and how they grew with the company and the kind of problem statements that they were able to work on. Because if you in your team, let's say you have a good engineer and you have an average performing engineer, who would you pick for the biggest project or the most challenging task? Obviously, the top
Yeah.
performers, right?
Yeah.
So that's you also get to know that who is working on what, and so there's a lot in the resume that people don't realize that you can actually figure out how the journey was for this person and how did they grow and things like that.
So this is one interesting observation, right? Usually, a lot of people would think resumes go to human resources. They are the ones looking at your resume, right? I know some people do realize that there are hiring managers who do this, but who are these hiring managers, right? So finally, how many resumes do you have to go through for a single hire? Do you go through many, or do you get a filtered version?
Both, it's both. So I work with a recruitment team and I tell them that these are some of the basic things that I look for. And I teach them. So every company, the first thing that I do is I spend time with the recruitment team, the not just the people heading the recruitment, but actually the people who are sourcing for every role. So we actually have a conversation, and I make sure that we go through a few resumes together. There's no easy way to write this down and say like this is the good way to screen or this is a bad way to screen. So we actually look at 20, 30 resumes for a given role together on a screen share. And I just walk them through the thought process that why is this a good why can this be a good candidate? Why do I think that this candidate might not succeed, etc., etc. And then I let them do similar filtering on their end. But again, after they come up with a shortlist, they share every resume with me, and all of the resumes go through my screening for the first few months in any new organization that I join, right? Once I realize that there is an engineering manager or a director or any senior leader who's able to do the same level of filtering, and we actually, it's about like this is a process where you're just calibrating, right? This is calibration between what you think, how does a recruiter think, how does your other leaders think. You're also sharing that understanding. So that process is, and it's time consuming, it's a lot of effort, but it is something that is very important. Or I see that is the only way that you can hit the hiring targets, right, with the right candidates that you want to hire.
Right. Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So then that's resume. Let's go on to like how are the other rounds then structured for engineering?
Yeah. So the first round is the coding round I mean, it's either an exploratory discussion or a coding round. If I need to sell or if somebody needs to sell the role or give some more context, we do an exploratory discussion. But otherwise, it's going to be coding. And in coding round, this is another interesting thing that we do very differently, and it's people have different opinions on that. I basically insist that you should just give a very simple problem statement. There is no problem solving also required. It's just like read about like say podcasts, and I'll say like let's just design a podcast scheduling system, right? And I'll give you all the details about it. I'm not even letting you think a lot about like what should be like. There are attendees of a podcast. There's a podcast there's a recording of a podcast. There's a playback or URL of that and something of that sort, right? Very simple. And then you just expect people to write code and then you evaluate them. The most important part of this is that we don't look for like algorithms, data structures, dynamic programming, lead code, like none of that, right? We are basically just saying how do you read something that you need to code and how do you translate it into code? It's about like an art of writing or expressing yourself using code, right? So how clean is your code? How extensible is your code? How well do you think of how do you translate that idea on the screen into like programming language? Show us the quality there, right? And that is what we actually look for. So a lot of people come to me saying, "What should I prepare for the coding round?" I said, "Don't prepare. It's like how have you been writing code for the last few years? Yeah, we are just expecting you to do the same thing in a very simple problem statement. You think about it like a day-to-day job that today you are supposed to write some code. How do you do that?" Right? So that is what we actually evaluate. But it's very subjective after the interview. So an interview feels very easy for people, right? Because they're just writing and solving a simple problem. But the evaluation is the tricky part, where then we go nitpick on everything, saying like, with the coding interviewers, we ask questions like, I see that this abstraction was not right. I see that this class was not named properly. Did you talk to the candidate about this? So sometimes people come back and say that, yeah, the candidate knew about these best practices, but just wanted to get something done, so they wrote something. Not so good. So my question is, on a day-to-day basis, if I ask you, right, like, that I need something today, you can't come back to me and say, sure, I knew how to do it the right way, but since you asked me to do it today, I'm just going to write something, right? It's generally that's not how we expect
Yeah.
people to operate, right?
Yeah. It's
So,
technical depth on steroids, if you allow that.
yeah,
Yeah.
right. So that's how we design our technical interviews. And recently, we've also started halfway through the interview. We ask them, you know what, just turn on your AI editors, whatever you want to use. The first half we expect you to write, but then when you're done with your initial design, let's just get things done sooner. So how will you prompt your AI tools? Do you just go ahead and accept everything, or do you actually modify things and do you like take? So we actually evaluate how people think and work with AI editors and things like that. So that's the very recent thing that we introduced. It's still work in progress.
Yeah. I think that's a good idea because instead of avoiding new tools and checking if they're using AI, allow them to use AI because you want them
Exactly.
to use it on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
And prompting actually, you can only prompt well if the thought in your mind is well organized and complete
Exactly.
and well packaged. Otherwise, if it's chaotic here, it's going to be chaotic in the code base as well. I think that's
Exactly.
a very good point.
What are your deal breakers? Like, what do you look at and say this is a deal breaker for me? It's not going to work out.
The core skills, of course, we have a wide variety of parameters that you look for. Every candidate will have pros and cons, and you'll always sit there and decide, am I okay to compromise on this and still go ahead, right? For example, it's also team driven, right? Do I have enough people in the team to kind of compensate this lack of skill for this candidate? Will it form a good team after I hire this person? So that is the kind of like evaluation that you will have to do, and deal breakers will change based on team to team. That's what I mean to say. The core skill set, of course, like a programmer not able to write clean code is obviously like a deal breaker. But let's say they're not able to understand AI, or they don't have enough knowledge about it. Do you have enough people in the team who do that? while this person can still come and learn, there'll be a ramp up time. While can the team still be successful in the meantime? That is what we basically look for in interviews and deal breakers. But of course, if the core multi-agent framework developer doesn't understand LLMs or AI and all the ML practices, then obviously it's a deal breaker for that team.
Yeah.
But then you also look at, I interviewed a great person. I feel that he has strength somewhere else. Should we, and sometimes we've done this, and in startups it's very common that you also change your open positions. So you are looking for a staff engineer, but you found a really good SDE4 and you feel that these people can come and contribute and grow. You change the open position, you close the staff position and you hire an SDE4. Hiring is about, for me, it's about hiring good people, making a good team. You go with a plan. The plan is to get these levels and these numbers. One of the biggest advices that I give people is that don't stick to the plan. Plan is a plan. Plan is supposed to change. Hire good people in the market. Let them come together. Give them a growth path, a meaningful one, and they'll execute. And you can work around that team structure.
So since we were talking about ramping up people, talk to us about your onboarding process for leadership positions. Like you have engineering managers, you have directors working in your organization. So let's start top down. How would you assess a director's performance? How do you assess a director's performance right now in interface, let's say?
I'll not say interface, I'll just keep it general, right? Because
very fair. Yeah.
So
let's say at Navi.
Yeah.
Right? Let's say
right, at some place, yeah, right.
Yeah.
So a director for me is a person who doesn't need enough motivation. Like I don't need to motivate them. That's when I call them being like at a director level. Like, they understand the business. They know they've come in as a leadership position to change the way the business works, to significantly contribute to the growth of the company and things like that. So they're really they should act as partners. We should collaborate on a vague problem statement that cross-team collaboration here is not going well, or efficiency in this division can be significantly changed, or bring in your own, like nowadays with AI, everything has a double down in terms of expectations as well, right? Yeah. So how do you do your, how does your org change from now till the next 6 months is itself, and how much of AI are you able to bring into this, right? How much are you thinking about this? How transformational are you, designing it? And how are you taking people from where they are today? What kind of upskilling are you doing to the people? And how are your new hires different? Have you put your, competency metrics, right? Is it published? You have the right, yeah. So, I mean, you basically evaluate a director on some of the leadership skills that they bring into the table, and they're really your multiplying force, right? So you have 100 things to solve for. They at least pick up 3 or 4 things very well, and they can actually talk about it, celebrate it, and then create a culture outside of their divisions as well. So they say, look, this is how I adopted AI. This is how I set expectations with my team. This is how I changed the hiring process. This is how I brought in an L&D program into my team, and this worked out very well. Right? And things like that. And how do they do that consistently and without you needing to nudge them, right? So that's another thing, right? You don't have to keep going and asking people what are you doing? What is your status update and things like that. They're proactive. They communicate. They're just yeah. So directors, I feel, are senior leadership people who are self-motivated, self-driven, and create impact without any.
Okay. And then how would you contrast that with, let's say, engineering managers, their duties or their expectations from them?
Engineering managers, some of them are pretty new to the role.
But sometimes it's really difficult to gauge if someone is just underperforming due to certain conditions, or someone is just a mishire and they aren't in the right position. How do you differentiate, and have you come across this dilemma?
It's actually a deeper topic, Ronil. So this is very interesting that I've seen some people who are very good performers in some of their previous organizations might not succeed in your organization, or vice versa. You would see some really high performing people in your team might not survive in another company, right? If you understand, there are very few people that you will see in your journey who are intentionally not doing things, and they will not succeed in most of the places anyway. Their growth will be hindered and all of that. But majority of the cases where we tag them as low performers, or in general people tag them as low performers, there is a reason behind it, right? As in, maybe they didn't feel that they had the right level of ownership within the project. Maybe somebody else was stepping on their decision making all through, and they just felt like, whatever I do is just going to get like overridden anyway. So I'm just not going to think about it. And just tell me what to do, I'll just do it. People get into that zone, and it happens more often than what we think. That, this is the whole point about how people feel and how you make them feel in a team, and how do you give them growth, and like, how do you coach them when somebody makes a mistake. I've seen people going and saying, obviously this is not what we discussed. I told you 3 days back that, this is a decision that we had taken in this project, that, nobody should change this module or something, but you still went ahead and did that. So you can make the person feel bad for what they did. Or you can also go and say, I think you already knew this, but I see that you've also gone and done it again. But can you maybe help explain what was your thought process? So what did you feel and think when you were doing it? Was it really like a miscommunication, or was there any other intention where you actually try and made changes to this module? So what I'm saying is, like, it all depends on how you make a person feel. That will definitely define how they perform within the organization and the team. Another big thing is, let's say, having a log of everything from the interview, from like, how did the interview go? How did the onboarding experience go? How did the performance reviews go? It will actually act as a feedback cycle to the entire system as well. So if you find that a person was not motivated and they're not performing, I refer back to their interview notes and see that, in the interview, the technical skills wasn't bad. I mean, we've evaluated it and we felt that it is good. So I don't jump to a conclusion that the tech skills are bad. So then you go and question those instances and like all of that. But if you know that the interview was half and half, and you knew there were problems in the coding round, you still went ahead and did it, and now the team is also complaining about the same thing, then you draw the pattern that maybe we should not make these kind of exceptions going forward, right? We should tighten our interview process a little bit more. So that's also like performance goes back to your interviewing process a lot.
So these pointers which you mentioned, Kaushik, right? Like which you keep note of right from the interview. Is there a way that you track them regularly? Like, just referring to the instance you mentioned, right? Where you change the way you give feedback. You probably ask them that, okay, what was your thought process for approaching this project in this manner? At what point do you realize that, okay, I have to course correct now, right? At what point do you realize, okay, no, this is not working out?
I think most of the people are trained, and they are sensitive to talk to people, like understand the root cause, and still kind of give the feedback and make sure that they're set up for success. There could be only in cases where it's a repeated, like you've discussed this, it comes up in your one-on-one, you give them a few more weeks to like kind of course correct. It didn't get fixed. So when it comes to me, almost like 1 or 2 cycles would have passed. So the engineering manager or the director would come to me saying, look, this is when the first instance was, we gave them this time, then this is what happened. They would have also done a good job of RCA, right? They would say that this person is not motivated because they're getting some, a better offer outside. They are not getting to work on the latest and greatest tech stack. These are the demotivating factors, but we really need this person because of the context that they have. So they give us all of this, a rundown of why they're not performing currently. Then you take a decision whether you want to make some efforts to change the structure and make them successful, or you say that, this is what is needed for the company at this point, right? So we are not expecting people who are always wanting to be on the shiny projects or like the latest and greatest one and not doing what is required for the role. You talk to them, you figure out whether they want to continue or not. And then at that point, you decide whether you want to retain a person or you want to give them another path and like help them find jobs outside, things like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And, for a lot of new leaders or managers, do you have a structured feedback process, let's say post hire? Like, is there a way that you track in the first
Yeah.
3 months?
There are a couple of things. So we started using Lattice as a tool in two
Okay.
of my previous organizations. It has a one-on-one notes that come with the tool.
Okay.
To be honest, we tried it. We felt that it is too much of a process to follow.
Overhead.
So we
Yeah.
overhead of like one-on-ones, writing every one-on-one in Lattice and all was too much, at least when we tried it first. So we fell back to like having a simple Google Doc that is shared between the person and the manager. Let's say I'm having a one-on-one with Ronald. I basically write down today till the next one-on-one, what is the discussion points that we had? What are action items on me and what are the action items on Ronald? Just write it down. So the next time you
Got it.
talk to them, you go refer back to that and say, okay, so today we discuss something else. And nowadays, it's super easy to keep these documentation very up to date, right? So you have AI note takers and everything. They automatically summarize, come up with action items. All you have to do is just copy paste it in a central place. That's it, right? Before this, we had to like sit and write it in front of the people and all of that, right? And it used to take some time. Nowadays, just record the one-on-one, have the notes, copy paste the action items in that document. So they understand that, we've talked about this and it's important for them. So you make it a regular process. These documents from the one-on-ones from the managers, they are all in one drive and they're shared with me, so I can go into any person, like, and see what was the growth conversation that they had. So when I do my skip level one-on-ones, I add my notes as well into like a document there, right? So
And I'm assuming, Kaushik, because you have a team of directors, right? They must all be taking their own interviews. So do you see a difference in the way they conduct the technical round? Because, all their feedback styles will be different. What signals do you or your team follows to assess culture fitment? And how do you make sure that it's not becoming a bias?
that's a good question. So every company has their core values, and if they have not defined it, they should define it, right? I mean, that's the first thing that leadership should do. What are the traits that you believe will make a person successful in your company is the core values of that company, right? So we basically also assign values to like different interview rounds. So for example, pursuit of excellence will be assigned to the coding and the HLD rounds, right? Acting like a founder, and like, some core values, right, that any company would care about. You tag them to interviews and you say very specifically you are supposed to evaluate them on these traits. Now, how you do it is different, but you need to tell why they're like, meeting that core value of the company. And that one liner of what you said, why they meet that core value is good enough.
Right.
You can do a situational based question, you can do your past project discussion, you can do whatever, but you need to say why you think that they
Yeah.
have that bias to action, or why they're acting like a founder, or why they bring AI first mindset and things like that.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like I want to go back and just, rest of the day I want to continue coding like for Bot Friday. So talking to you made me feel like I
Yeah.
want to go and code now. I don't want to do anything else. So a bit more about engineering leadership and philosophy. So as a leader, you have
Yeah.
to split your time across hiring, mentoring, firefighting, strategy, architecture. Do you have time slots where you are allowed to do these things, or do you just have to recalibrate every week based on where the fire is?
I think it's about recalibrating and understanding where I have support. So where I can lean on people, where things are still getting done, while you are setting the expectations and you are sharing the problem statement, are there enough people to kind of take that and get it done? So then I don't have to go into the details of those aspects, even if they're important. But then that's also an input to the prioritization of hiring for me. If I'm spending a lot of time in architecture, then I really need a CTO or like, a chief architect kind of a person. If they're not playing the role, then I obviously have to step in and do all of those things as well.
You have to fill the gaps, anything and everything.
Exactly. Exactly.
I think the
Right.
higher you go, that becomes your job, right? Where what
Yeah.
everyone doesn't want to do or can't do, these are the two things you have to do.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
Do,
true.
do you
That's true.
feel as you've gone above in hierarchies that less and less good news comes to you, all the bad news comes to you, that I'm not able to do this or I'm having this issue? But
Yeah.
when you're an
Yeah.
IC, you get more good news. Have you noticed that
Yeah.
over the years?
Absolutely, absolutely. I don't think people will often reach out to you and say, "Hey, Kaushik, things are going well." Obviously, people will reach out to you and say, like, things are broken. And sometimes the biggest
Yeah.
problem that I see is people don't reach out on time, right?
On time,
Let's say there is
yes, yes, yeah.
there's a sales call on Monday, and on a Sunday evening, somebody reaches out saying, "I wasn't able to do it." Really, that's like not the right time for me to hear like bad news. So I,
Yeah.
while it is mostly like things that we need to fix, I just encourage people to say it's okay, over communicate, like put your
Yes.
blockers so that we can resolve it earlier, right? Don't hesitate to talk to me. So being open is also another trait, right? Like, so if the person reaches out to me and I say, why, if I just say that this is not expected, you should have done a better job, they don't feel like coming to you again, right? But if you just hustle, get it done, and then say, look, it took me so much effort to do it at the last minute. If you had just told me this a couple of days back, we could have easily got this done. Then they realize
Exactly.
that, they have to reach out to me earlier and, like, kind of get things done.
But it's a
But
process.
yeah, I think,
Everyone
yeah,
initially always does it once,
yeah,
makes the mistake of telling you in the last moment, and then eventually they learn.
exactly,
So I think every month
exactly,
you probably face an issue where this should have been communicated to you earlier. Is that fair? Every month?
exactly, exactly. Yeah, not every month, every few weeks, I would say.
Yeah, yeah, I feel you. So this is one thing, right? Another thing is constant deadlines. For example, when it was Hotstar, right? India is not going to delay their match, cricket match with England. They will play on the day they will play. So that is the hardest deadline you can ever get, right? And when you have such deadlines, and you have to take some technical debt, you cannot say that we'll write the most sophisticated and best code and complete on time, because those two things might just not be possible. You won't have enough time or resources. So how do you balance execution speed, and how do you still try your best to minimize the technical that you take, even though there's a huge pressure for a deadline? So how is that mindset, or what is your philosophy there?
When you have time as a constraint, obviously the solutioning has to be the best given that time. So I wouldn't say it's like hack anything and get anything done, but it's mostly about talking through things like what features will I not deliver? What will I not have as part of this? What will still be like a manual or a cumbersome process? So, like, for example, autoscaler in Hotstar was something that we were building, right? We just built a suboptimal version of it for the next immediate match, right? And then we said, obviously this can do a lot better. It can scale up earlier, it can do warm up better, it can do caches better. All of this is in the roadmap. For now, the trade-off that you're taking is higher cost, which is okay, right? For one or two matches, you're paying higher cost, and then we'll build the best possible solution later. So it's all about understanding for that deadline what is the trade-off that you're going with, right? So one of the products that we had to launch was supposed to have a real-time handoff to a back office agent. We basically said that this product, if it has to go live in the time that you are saying, then you'll not have this real-time handoff portal and alerts and everything. I'll give you a back database dump of what's happening, and I'll give you a connector to connect to the database. You keep refreshing your table as long as you want, and you'll see what you need. So
Hmm.
obviously the functionality was not built, but what we compromised was internal portals and experience of
Yeah,
internal employees, and not
dashboards.
really the customer. Yeah, right. So those kind of things. So
Your employees were logging into the database and running queries.
yeah, exactly. Right.
Yeah. Okay, let's say we understand the time constraint and everything, right? But still, when you do take technical debt, what that means is maybe sometimes suboptimal design, missing features, but mostly code quality gets impacted a lot, right? That is the first casualty when you accelerate something. So how do you ensure that this debt is paid and it does not accrue interest, causing a spiral in the future? How do you do that? And secondly, how do you measure code quality?
Yeah, this is very good question. Actually, I'd love to talk about that. So here, the concept of code quality is also evolving in our minds. So
because
what
of
really
AI, right?
matters nowadays, yeah, absolutely, right? So what really matters now for us is the contracts, right? Is the breakdown of services and
Yeah,
responsibilities correct? As long as you're not breaking that, sure, go write procedural code in one file,
one
whatever.
big
I can
file.
quickly come back
Yeah,
and right. I can quickly come back, refactor it, right? But
yeah,
if the contracts are not set right, then it's a
that's a
huge tech
problem.
debt. Migrations and you have to refactor that. It's just going to take you forever to do that. So we pick our debt areas as well, and we say this is non-negotiable for us to even some of the products that we are building, we are taking some futuristic decisions on how this system should extend now, and then saying that the entire thing is not there, but at least let's agree on this document, let's agree on this contract, and as long as you stick to it, it's okay even if you do some hackish things around that. We can quickly come back and rewrite that part later. So that's basically how we think
Makes
about
sense.
code quality nowadays.
By contract, you mean interfaces and abstractions, as long as the abstraction doesn't break and the black box gives the
Yeah,
same outputs for the same inputs, you are fine because in the age of
yeah,
AI, as internal stuff can be rewritten very fast. Before, if someone messed up this
exactly.
code, it would be very expensive to rewrite this and changing it would be very painful. Now with AI, you can quickly rewrite and quickly change. So I think everything
Yeah,
wrapped up in a neat box is more important. Inside the box, you can rearrange later. Is that the right way to say it?
exactly, exactly.
Makes sense. I agree. AI has really basically it has enlarged the wrapping of abstractions that we have. Before, every function needed to be clean. Now, as long as the service, as you said, or the module has a good abstraction and doesn't
Hmm.
break, it's acceptable nowadays to have
Yeah,
suboptimal code. Yeah, as long as
right.
security is in
Right.
compromise, we need good security quality and
Hmm.
quality assurance around the product. Then, without that, then this becomes a problem, I
Exactly.
guess. No,
Yeah,
makes
yeah.
sense.
So
Speaking of,
a lot of focus nowadays is around these technical decisions and technical alignment between teams. I think that is the most time-consuming part, which AI is not able to replace nowadays because, it's about agreeing to what your service is supposed to do, what are the data points that you will get, and how you are supposed to respond, and will that work when the product evolves? When the use cases evolve, is this a design that will be evolutionary, or is it something that you'll have to question and change it, and things like that?
yeah,
Uh,
no, makes sense. And also the push and pull between, okay, my service won't be doing this, or this is part of the contract we don't agree to, or the amount of downtime they agree to, or the amount of requests they want the service to handle per second. Makes sense. Your ex-colleague Purushottam mentioned that you're a strong proponent of chaos engineering. What made you a strong proponent or a believer in it? At what stage in your career did you realize, oh, this is a useful practice that I should adopt as well?
So I would say right from the time that I was on call, right, I was not enjoying my time as an on-call engineer,
On call.
right? We
Yeah,
used to
nobody does.
yeah. So I mean, very early on in the career, I used to really think that should I even join this team? How much on-call load do they have? And I used to make decisions on joining a team or not based on those things. But it really comes down to thinking about how many times do you want an engineer or a human to come and fix something, right? And if you've been enough on call and you've seen enough RCS and you've seen enough things, right? You'll realize that a lot of these things are something that you could have just designed better. A lot of these things could have auto healed. A lot of these things could have solved by a product, right? And this amplified in Hotstar. Obviously, with that scale, we had to be ready with everything that could go wrong, and we had to simulate all the failure patterns, and we had to be ready in all scenarios, right? So we really invested a lot in chaos engineering there, and we basically started figuring out things like what if one service to other service, the communication breaks down? What if your database goes bad? How does your application respond? How does your interface to the customers change when things degrade? That was the biggest question in our mind. And to answer that question, we had to design a lot of chaos engineering experiments and kind of see how it runs. And it was very interesting. Like your streaming will be affected on your mobile devices when some of the, does it even matter? Let's say, for example, if your home page, rendering or loading is taking time, do you need to disrupt a customer's ability to watch an IPL or just open the phone and see IPL? So then we realized that, sure, if home screen doesn't load after some time, just go to the latest match. You know what that match is. Like by default, take the person there. Don't even try to load the home screen. If it fails,
Yeah.
I mean, obviously in the failure
It's a fallback.
scenarios, right?
Yeah.
It's a fallback, right? So it really helped us build systems. And one of the things that I really liked is when I joined Hotstar, when we were trying to build our first platform for this scale, there was a war room in Mumbai, right? We all used to travel to the office and have a dedicated floor where every service owner and every person, including the CTO, they're all part of this huge war room. There are monitors all around the place, and anything goes off, there is a protocol that was defined. That there's a commander of the war room, and you have to go communicate here. You have to take an approval for a change, and then you have to do your job. Like it was high intense, kind of hypercare war room that we used to run. But once we did all of this chaos engineering and we kind of did our load testing experiments, and we were very confident, we stopped traveling for these big matches, right? And we stopped, supporting IPL in a central location. Then we stopped even
That's
going to office.
increase in
Sometimes this IPL,
confidence.
that's increase in confidence, and sometimes these matches used to go till 1 a.m. or 2 a.m. in the night. So then we realized that we might as well just be at home and then support it. Then some matches we wanted to enjoy with our friends, so we used to just carry a laptop and a phone and then go to like some social places, enjoy the match while the the biggest match is also happening. So you see the
Chaos engineering helped you, they took you from supporting Hotstar to supporting India and watching the match finally.
exactly right, supporting IPL as an RCB. I'm a big RCB fan, so
Wow.
supporting
Oh, IPL,
RCB.
yes, RCB. Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
Dhoni.
right,
Yeah.
right.
That's a testament to how robust the system had become if you didn't need a war room, because this is a high impact event, right? If people are not able to watch these matches, there are repercussions. People are angry. So to have the confidence to not have a war room, something like the confidence must be sky high, which is amazing.
Yeah, yeah, and that's all possible through load test and chaos engineering experiments that we were running, right? So that's when I took it to other companies and as well, and then I told people how to work on these things, and they were pretty excited to learn how to get these things done. And obviously, like even in Navi, you could see that the on-call load was almost not very high, right? People just used to worry about building features and shipping products rather than like thinking what is breaking at what point of time.
I always feel a good engineering team minimizes maintenance and focuses on growth, right? If you are maintaining, that means something can still be automated. Then automate it while you're on call. Feel that pain, automate it so you don't have to feel that pain again. Purushottam also told us, I think, that you all mocked a lot of third-party services that I think it was in Navi, where Navi system used to speak to. Basically, your platform has things that every service would need, right? Like, let's say chaos engineering or basic DevOps functions or monitoring. I'm sure even your monitoring must be built out on your platform, and even your experimentation A/B tests must be built out on your platform, correct? So then your platform engineering team actually just becomes a singular service that services all your other engineering teams to move faster.
Exactly. And this is very interesting on how hiring went on platform engineering also, right? So the person was asking me, what's my role? So I said, your role is to talk to every engineering team, understand what they're trying to build and get their problems, prioritize it, build it, and then ship it to them. So really a good stakeholder management was required in that role. Really understanding that obviously you can't solve all teams 100% of the problems because then you'll overfit and make it too bad. So at least solve 80-90% of the problems, right? That is common. How do you prioritize it? how do you communicate back that people are supposed to use these things, and how do you encourage them to adopt it? So we were able to hire a couple of really good people in this space as well.
Oh yeah, and I think the returns are exponential when you have a good platform and a platform engineering team, because everyone benefits from it, not just one team. Your whole org starts moving faster. So I think, but there needs to be some vision to know that this investment, while now is painful, there will be dividends in the future. If you think short term, you'll never have a platform team ever.
The investment is also paying off even in the short term, to be honest, because like I said, 0 to 1 startups or 1 to 10 journeys, people are, like you said, their deadlines and people want to meet them. If somebody is able to come up and solve some of their problems, they're really appreciating it, and they're saying that, oh wow, this is great. Thank you for picking up these things for me. Let me just focus on shipping code and doing things that I care about.
You're right. There are some low-hanging fruits, which if another team does for you, like mock servers, because no engineer wants to run the whole thing again and again, end to end, and then see. Like, I think I'll give you the best example. So at Bot Friday, right, whenever someone's resume is approved, AI talks to this candidate over email, right? There's a back and forth. And we were facing some problems where if a candidate says, sure, let's talk in 10 minutes. So the AI wasn't really understanding it well enough. So, and then there were many edge cases that were coming up, and testing that every time via sending an email was painful, right? So, like, we just took a couple of hours to do nothing much but a small unit test that tests the intelligence layer. Just that, so that we can put all those email cases in one file and then see the output and then improve the output. So the iteration speed was so much higher that we were able to achieve that within a couple of hours rather than days. I think it was that much more faster, because going through the whole process, email, replying to the email manually. So any engineer who's able to iterate faster because there is some mock somewhere helping you out, I think that in itself is humongous. Even a basic CI/CD when you're starting off a project, I think even if it's 0 to 1, even if it's from scratch, set up your CI/CD very quickly. Every time you go manually deploy, pain and waste of time. And CI/CD is very easy to set up, right? Just if you have a VM, just make a Azure DevOps account and just run your thread over there. It's that easy. So I agree. It's exponential saving, right? Do 3 hours today, but how many hours do you save? Plus the quality of your software, I think, exponentially goes up, because developers will actually pick up these smaller problems and solve them too. They have time and it's easy. So there is less friction in their minds to take up that task. I don't know. So I'm very excited about this part. I am so in agreement with you about the benefits of platform engineering. And one very nice thing you said was, it's not just for big companies. Smaller companies they don't need a platform engineering team, but a mindset still helps, right? Let's make these small things. Let's have some unit tests where we can iterate faster. Let's have some DevOps. Let's have some testing ability. Let's have some logic gates where you can just enable or disable a feature very quickly and test it out with a few clients. Even these things, this is platform engineering, right? It doesn't have to be an Amazon or Google. You can do it at any level.
Exactly. Yeah, that's true.
I got so excited hearing you. I went on a tangent. Sorry about that. Harsh,
No
why don't you
problem.
take over?
No problem. Absolutely okay. In fact, I want us to, Kaushik, like towards the concluding part, I want you to zoom out a little bit, right? And spend some time with me reflecting on, your leadership decisions primarily, right? Because when I was talking to the folks you let me speak to, I realized that, while a lot of people under you feel empowered, sometimes they also equally feel pressured, right? And how have you developed this leadership style where, someone knows that they cannot mess with you, but they also know that tomorrow if they are in a problem, they can reach out.
Like I said, the biggest problem with this kind of setup is, if there are fake deadlines, people will not really appreciate it and they'll feel pressure. That is the definition of burnout and feeling pressurized and bad leadership and things like that, right? But as you know, we've discussed what happened in Hotstar, what happened in Navi, and what's currently happening. So some of these things are things that we have to get done, right? And I keep telling people that if you spend more time interviewing, if you spend more time in getting the right people with you, then there are people to share the load. So you will not be in these pressurized situations over and over again. So I do encourage them and show them the way and say that, this is where, these are hiring targets, these are the open positions. We're trying very hard to get the right people, obviously, but till they join, like if there are some things that we'll have to stretch and get done, let's do it. Because I think one of the interesting things is also that, if you're just asking people to do mundane tasks over and over again, they'll also not feel very motivated and they'll just say that, this is just BIU for us. But if you're really challenging something and building something very differently, which they are also learning, then they feel that, they also need to put in some more effort to learn and actually succeed. And because it's a question mark in their mind, right? Whether this mock server thing is going to help the team or not was a big question mark in their mind. But after that, I'm very glad that he brought it up, because I remember the first few days where I had to convince the team that we have to do something of this
Exactly.
sort, right?
Yeah.
And after so many years, if people are remembering like that, learning from the whole system, I'm sure they don't look back and say, what, I worked on one two late evenings, or I worked on a weekend for getting this
Yeah.
done. But they're really remembering, that this is a good construct and this is something that we need to learn and develop and things like that. So,
That's what I meant with
like I
the
said,
short-term thing. It's very difficult to convince people if short-term gains are not very obvious. Right? Long-term, but
yeah,
short-term is not obvious, then it's very difficult to convince. But
yeah,
yes, when we
yeah,
spoke to people, people were very convinced now after they saw the impact of what you did with chaos engineering and third parties, mock servers, and many more things.
yeah. No, I think that's the thing. And how do you keep people approachable is very simple, right? I mean, I've learned this from all the founders that I work with are really good ones. They're all very humble, right? While they still manage large companies and all of that, they've been very approachable to me, right? And I can do the same thing with the people that I work with, right? So it's okay to come brainstorm and say that, I want to do something else. I'm not liking what I'm doing, or I have a new idea and I want to experiment on this. What are your thoughts? Like, if you keep encouraging it's just about every conversation. How do you have it with an individual? How do you make them feel when they talk to you is what will make you be more approachable in a company and organization.
So I'm very glad to know, Kaushik, that this is not a leadership style that you were born with, but you've cultivated, right? Which means
Yeah.
that you're constantly kind of reassessing, learning, and redeveloping your style. And which brings me to a very interesting question, primarily because we are in the space of hiring recruitment. Have you ever made a wrong hiring decision? And what did you learn from it? What did you take away from it?
No, I think wrong hiring decisions have been made, a few that I can think of. It's just that I think one of the things that I recall and I realized is like, being very upfront about what is it to work in, what does it look like to work in a startup? What does it mean for a person? Understanding their past and
Okay.
then upfront telling them. So they might not ask this question in an interview. They're just interviewing with you, right? They did well in the technical rounds. They got selected. They felt that it was a competitive offer. They joined, and then you see that they're not really liking the the work culture, environment, and things like that. So one of the great engineers that I worked with, he wanted documentation first culture. He wanted to make sure that everything is written in a RFQ document. People comment on that document, and only then he'll go and write some code, which is good. I mean, I'm not saying that that's bad, but I really respected that engineer also because he brought in all of that maturity and he thoughtfulness that is required for an engineering team. But we also had to think about it like, we already have 200 plus engineers working with us. Now, bringing a change like this is like, just going to change the entire dynamics of the team while we
Yeah.
always need to get there iteratively and we need to start bringing examples and start changing things. It will still take like at least a few quarters or a few years to kind of bring in that maturity in companies. But this person was not very used to like not having the document, not having people review it. He used to come and complain to me that, I've shared this document with the team. Nobody has said anything, so I'm still waiting for people to comment on it. And see, it actually works because in some of my early career days, there were these tech leads who were very rigid, and that's how we got groomed, right? I mean, they said that you cannot push code unless you fix these five things in your PR. They were very rigid, and that's how we as engineers also got groomed in the early stages. And I get what he was trying to do. He was trying to change the culture of the team, saying that you have to kind of be like very thoughtful in your tech decisions. Every decision that you're taking is logged in a central place, approved by at least a peer, and all of that, which is good. But we realized that it was a wrong hire because it wasn't really matching the expectations on the other side. While this is great, do you also understand that there are like real-time risk models that are running suboptimally if you don't deliver this on time, right? And it kind of was obvious, like the candidate or that employee was not aligned with how we operate and was not willing to change. Obviously, there's no right or wrong things here, right? So the company needs something, the team dynamics are something, and the expectation. So one of the things that I learned from these, I mean, just one example, but there are multiple other examples. But one of the things that I learned is being very upfront about, look, I acknowledge as an engineering leader, I've seen all different types of organizations. I understand where you are coming from. This is the stage that we are in. This is how we operate. This is what we respect and value. And we are trying to move to this state in the next few years. So are you willing to like really come in and work in this environment, in this stage right now? So that actually kind of gives people perspective to decide whether they want to be part of the team or not.
Yeah. And now, Kaushik, similarly, like a lot of directors, because you have so much learning with the way you recruit, what advice would you give to someone who's becoming a first time, hiring manager, especially in tech and engineering?
So first time hiring managers are again like go through all of the things that we discussed. I basically give them examples of what worked, what didn't work, over the years, what were the mistakes that we made, and why is it important and not important for. So that calibration that I talked about earlier. So that is very important for the first time hiring manager. You will have to spend a lot more time with the first time hiring manager to get them in sync with how you are thinking and how they build the team. And then when you see them making enough right decisions and you are confident, that's when you say that you are independent and now trust you to make the right decisions.
And Kaushik, like when we look at your entire journey, it looks like, a lot of big projects, a lot of big products, big teams which are led. But I'm sure behind the shiny journey, there have also been setbacks, failures, would it be possible for you to reflect on a few and guide us of, what you learned from them, how you kind of tackled it?
Yeah, so a lot actually, right? So you only see what went well. Obviously, there are a lot of things that don't go well for the things that need to go well happen. So a few mistakes and failures that we've seen is um trying to give a very complex framework or a platform component that needs to be built to people who don't really value that or people who don't understand the nitty-gritties of it, right? So I've given some projects to some really good technical people because I felt they are very deep in technology, right? They need to go into meta programming and they need to really build something nice. But what I failed to realize is that these people or these leaders that I trusted them to build these platform components, the thing that I was telling you about stakeholders and they need to understand the value of that going out, that was completely missing. So I chose the wrong, people. I thought technically if I have the right people, they can execute on these projects. But then what I really realized is you need people who care about these outcomes and products to lead those products. Only then they will self push, unblock themselves and make progress. Otherwise, it's just going to be, yeah, you told me it's a complex tech project. I did this, but now it's not working. What do you want me to do? Then again, you need to go talk to them, unblock them. So there have been a few failed or dropped initiatives, if you want to call it that way. And those initiatives were failed or dropped because the right people were not chosen to lead the right set of initiatives.
Right. So you might You might not be, hands-on with everything, but even if you can find the right person for the right job, a lot of
Yeah.
things can, get taken care of.
Right.
With that, Kaushik, I want to move to the last segment, and this is a slightly fun segment where I'm going to throw a few statements at you, and you have to just tell me whether this is a reality or myth, especially with someone like me who doesn't belong to an engineering team or a background, right? And you can obviously also add a line to explain why you feel it's a myth or a reality. Okay. So the first one is top engineering candidates are obvious in the first 10 minutes.
I think it's a reality.
I agree.
I mean, you really, when you feel it, yeah.
Second one is performance is predictable if the hiring is tight.
Absolutely not. It's a myth, right? Like we discussed about how performance and hiring can be very different based on the situation.
And hiring managers should always interview their own replacements.
I think that's an interesting, it probably can work. It has never been that way, at least in my setup, but it's something to think about, I would say. Yeah.
And finally, most tech interviews are broken, but nobody in the industry is ready to accept it.
I agree. Like I said, there's a lot of rethinking about technical interviews and the evaluation, the back and forth. The debriefs are the most fun part, I would say. Right? Like every interview, when you go into the debrief, people are like, okay, why are we? It was obvious that this candidate was supposed to be selected. Why didn't it happen? Right? And the other way around, right? So
Yeah,
it is true.
great, Kaushik. This has been excellent.
No, this was absolutely fun. I feel like we kept geeking out in the middle again and again, and I loved it.
Yeah. And before we sign off, Kaushik, last one, I want you to give one advice which you would give to your younger self, while starting out in the journey. What would that be?
I would say read a lot more and go into research, which probably did not happen. It was more about project and what I can contribute to the project. Maybe now, if I think about it, if I probably spent a little bit more time in why did a technology come into existence and what were the design decisions that were taken, what were the white papers that people published and things like that. I think it could have been an even better, impactful journey. But again, there's never too late. So doing that right now.
That's great, Kaushik. I love how honest you have been in all your reflections, especially about your setbacks and things you would love to learn. So thank you once again, Kaushik, for doing this. You've been very graceful in giving us almost 2 hours on a Saturday.
Thanks. Yeah, no problem. Thank you, Harsh and Ronil.